Hello all, and welcome to Shatter Our Souls with Novaria. And today, I actually want to take a little bit of a talk on gaming as a whole and tier listing, on what I'd call metagaming. Now, metagaming is one of those things that a lot of people do, whether subconsciously or not. And the reality is that in the internet age, it's never been easier. It has never been easier to dig into a game's code and find something, anything to give your player a competitive edge. But for every player who has done this, there are, admittedly, 10 others who have probably done the same. Reality is that when it comes to a lot of games out there on the market today, games that have been out for 10, 20 years in the case of Mario Kart Wii, you end up with a situation where if you're not first, you're last kind of thing. Where what was once a thriving game with numerous ways of playing, numerous character kart combinations that expressed their player base, became diluted, formulated, or got to a point of being formulaic, where everybody did the same thing. Because if you weren't playing to the meta, you really didn't stand a chance. And nowhere is this, I suppose, more glaring than in Mario Kart. Now, back in, I suppose, the heyday of Mario Kart Wii had a problem where most of the online discourse in legal competitive rooms, such as ones without a bunch of cheat engines running at all times, most players usually used Funky and the Flame Runner, as well as maybe Daisy and the Mach Bike. Now, at times there were a couple odds and ends of players doing things because they just thought, let's do this, but generally speaking, that was the meta. That was what people played because that's the only thing that could actually get you a win in competitive Mario Kart. And this discourse has actually extended far beyond just Mario Kart Wii. Every Mario Kart since Wii, to my understanding, has had a this kart is awesome, this kart sucks mentality of players choosing one or two things that really suit them and nothing more. Or really suit the play and not the personality, not the person. So for me, stating outright that I always used Dry Bones and the Blue Falcon, to many that would seem silly. I'm not a competitive Mario Kart player in any way, shape, or form, so what I'm effectively doing is just choosing my favorites. What works for me as a player? What defines who I was as a player at that time in my life? And as a kid, I always went with Baby Mario and Baby Luigi in Mario Kart Double Dash. Admittedly, with the barrel train. Now, I didn't learn until many years later that the barrel train was actually really overpowered. But I liked it because it was this car that was deemed to be the slowest vehicle in the game. So, to get a victory with it, in my mind, was supposed to be this grand challenge, this thing that made me a better player as an individual. But when you dig down to it, one thing that I think gets ignored is that these developers that make these types of games often end up with this situation where a large portion of what they make never actually gets a whole lot of attention. First of all, that was on you, King Boo. I was trying to avoid that. So, for example, in Mario Kart Wii, there are 8 characters per weight class, meaning there are 24 characters and 36 vehicles. There is more than enough to go around, and yet, why are we stuck with 2 combinations out of the hundreds of possibilities? Sure, does every single weight class have just a reskinned or repainted version of the 12 vehicles that they have? Absolutely. I won't argue that. But every single character has their own set of stats that make them uniquely different. That makes every time you pick up the game just a little bit different, more unique, a little bit more. And I often equate this to what Melee became. See, Super Smash Bros. Melee, by an extension of what it was a game with 25 characters. But each of those 25 characters, when you got to a competitive level, really eked out to maybe 4 at most. Any player who wanted to play as Ganondorf pretty much got shot out the door as soon as that situation came to be around. People who wanted to play as Captain Falcon or Dr. Mario didn't exactly get their time to shine. It became a game about Fox. Because if you weren't playing Fox, most players would not be able to make competitive levels. And so much of the game was thrown aside for this competitive side of the game. Every player had to learn Fox as a character, meaning the other 24 were neglected at best or ignored at worst. I think there was something like 20-ish arenas, and 2 of them were legal in tournaments, maybe 3. Items were turned off. So already you're looking at a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percent of what the developers spent their time on to make a game. And to me, that's frustrating. I'm an individual who likes to appreciate games in their fullest capacity. I like to mess around and play with randomizers and see what I can get myself into, because I want to see the full breadth of a game. I want to be able to say, oh yeah, I like this character more than this character because this one just kind of speaks to me better. Speaks to me more as a player. And I think that ultimately, as an individual who plays and does this type of content on a regular basis, that's something that I personally want to strive for, something that I personally believe sets me as a person apart from many others. But when we get into Mario Kart, yes, how do I want to word this? Mario Kart Wii has 32 tracks. Every single one of these 32 tracks has kind of a set meta or plan around it. Very few people can really eke out new shortcuts. There's a lot of experimentation that goes on. But when you're playing competitive Mario Kart, compared to speedrunner Mario Kart, compared to casual Mario Kart, there are like 4 separate layers to who it appeals to. And I do think that's a huge part of what makes Mario Kart such a mainstay in its current situation, its current meta, its current lifespan. Mario Kart Wii is a going on 20-year-old game. And that to me is an exceptionally long time for it to have remained relevant in any capacity. Mario Kart Wii is the tried and true, the aged and honored Mario Kart. But much of what made it unique is slowly but surely disappearing, is dying, is effectively ignored. And I say it in that way because I truthfully believe that as a player base, we have done ourselves a disservice by ignoring so much of the game as a whole. And to kind of explain what I mean, there are, let's see, 24 by 12 carts apiece, 288 Mario Kart Wii character kart combinations. Now, that seems like an absurd amount. Why are we only using 2 of them? Why is it that we are using Mario Kart Wii's Funky Kong and Daisy and the Mock Bite. There are 288 possible character kart combinations, and we use 2. This is what I mean when I say that we are using a fraction of a percent of what Mario Kart has to offer. Now, 100%, I'm going to say this outright, we use what we like. As a player, as a kid, I used to only play the odd 1, maybe 2 odd combinations that I liked, and maybe mess around with a different weight class, or try and figure out why I couldn't unlock 1 or 2 odd karts for the medium class. 100%, I'm the type of player who, as a kid, tended to focus in on one thing and one thing only. But it's this almost narrow vision tunnel vision we've developed as gamers, where in many cases, if it isn't the meta, it isn't worthwhile. And I don't believe that's true. I believe that there is always room for whatever makes or breaks your desires as a player. For me, I'm gonna go back to Melee for a moment. My main character has always been Mario. I could 3-stock virtually any player with Ganondorf. And sure, I use random oddball characters on a regular basis with Mario Kart Wii, 8, you name it, where I will just full out random everything and see what I get. But part of that is because you never know what you're going to get. You're never going to know what really suits your interests or makes you laugh the hardest. And ultimately, gaming is about, in my mind, it's about joy. It's about finding the little things to live and smile around or about. I don't necessarily think there's anything that truly makes or breaks a game more than ignoring 90% of it. So, the reason I want to get into that, and the reason I'm talking about it, is that I'm seeing the same trends crop up time and time again, wherein people are focusing in on 2, maybe 3 aspects of a game in and of itself, and that's all they're doing. That's the run. We're going with it. Full send. And to me, it just seems disingenuous. It neglects the amount of effort and time that went into making these games, which is why I spend so much time randomizing and messing around with different character and kart combinations. It's why I'm the person who has 17 dozen Smash Bros videos where I'm fighting 1 to 2 players and just seeing what I get into by playing the oddball or playing random. Because, again, that's what I enjoy. And I want to get more out of it. I want to get the most out of it as possible. And maybe what I get out of a game is different from what others do. I definitely have more game time than your average adult these days. And I do think that does color my personal expectations and beliefs around it. But what do you think? As players in and of yourselves and as viewers, let me know down in the comments below whether or not you are the type to focus more on meta, on fun, or just on who you as a player end up feeling fits you best. Until next time, where we are starting 150cc Mario Kart Wii, drop a like, maybe a subscribe, and I'll catch you next week. Until then, I hope you all have a good one.